Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to put on our detective hats and go on the hunt for a really dangerous culprit that's hiding in plain sight. We're talking about a microscopic saboteur that threatens our most powerful medicines. Okay, let's just start with a really big question, something that drives this whole investigation. Really think about it for a second. What if the medicines we rely on, our strongest antibiotics, just stopped working? And look, this isn't some sci-fi movie plot. It's a real critical public health challenge that's happening right now. We're in a constant battle with what people call superbugs, bacteria that are evolving defenses way faster than we can come up with new treatments. So our main suspect today is a tiny saboteur armed with something called an ESBL. The best way to think of it is like a secret defensive shield. It's an enzyme the bacteria use to literally shred our antibiotic molecules, making them completely and utterly useless before they can even do their job. All right, let's crack open the case file on this elusive suspect. Identifying bacteria that carry these ESBL shields is, well, it's absolutely vital. And not just for treating patients, but for keeping tabs on how these superbugs are spreading all over the world. Now, the investigation tends to zero in on a few, let's call them the usual suspects. We're talking about really common bacteria, things like E. coli and Klebsiella, that you could find in a hospital or even out in the community. The problem is when they learn how to carry these resistance shields. That's when a common bug turns into a major threat. Okay, so you've got a patient sample. It's teeming with all kinds of bacteria. How in the world do the lab detectives even begin to find the bad guys with these shields? Well, they start with what's basically an initial lineup, a screening test to pick potential culprits out of the crowd. So the detectives in the lab, they expose the bacteria to specific indicator antibiotics. If the bacteria just keep on growing, totally unfazed, like, is that all you got? Well, that throws up a huge red flag and tells the investigators they need to dig a lot deeper. And this is where it gets really cool. The clues are super specific. In this test called disc diffusion, there's a little area where the bacteria can't grow called a zone of inhibition. That's the key. For the drug cefplodoxime, if that zone is tiny, like 17 millimeters or less, it's basically like a witness pointing a finger and saying, that's the one, interrogate that bacterium. All right, so once we've got a suspect flagged from that initial lineup, it's time to bring it into the interrogation room. This is where we use a confirmatory test to prove, without a doubt, that it's carrying that SBL shield. And the key to this whole interrogation, it's this one molecule called clavulanic acid. You can just think of it as a bacterial truth serum. It's amazing. It doesn't actually kill the bacteria itself, but it brilliantly disables that ESBL shield, breaking the culprit's main line of defense. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the aha moment of the whole investigation. On the left, you see the bacteria with its shield up, just shrugging off the antibiotic. But then on the right, you add our truth serum, the clavulanate, and bam, the shield fails, and the very same antibiotic can now do its job. That sudden change in behavior, that's the confession. So here's how it all comes together. The detectives measure that zone where bacteria can't grow with just the antibiotic. Then they do it again, but this time with the antibiotic plus the clavulanate. If that zone gets bigger by 5 millimeters or more, that's it. That is the smoking gun. It's a clear-cut confession that an ESBL shield was at play. But like any good detective story, it's not always that simple. The case can get complicated. There are twists, there are red herrings, things that can totally mislead our investigators and make finding the truth really tough. Sometimes a bacterium is a master of disguise. For instance, it might have an ESBL shield, but it also has a second, totally different shield called AMP-C, and our truth serum doesn't work on that second shield, so it looks innocent. That's what we call a false negative. A guilty bug gets away. On the other hand, you can get a false positive, where other tricks make a bacterium look guilty when it isn't. And then there's this list, the most wanted list of tricky bacteria. They are particularly sneaky. They can look totally harmless in the initial lab tests, fooling doctors into using a certain antibiotic. But then, right in the middle of treatment, they can activate a powerful hidden resistance shield, causing the therapy to fail out of nowhere. So with all these challenges, trying to interpret behavior, dealing with disguises, our microbial detectives are now turning to more advanced forensics. They're analyzing the DNA evidence directly. This is a total game changer. It's like pulling a genetic fingerprint. Instead of observing what the bacteria does, we use these incredible molecular tools to look directly for the blueprints, the actual genes that code for the ESBL shield. It's a much more direct way to identify the culprit's weapon. But of course, there are trade-offs. This chart really lays it out. The new genotypic testing, it's unbelievably fast. We're talking answers in hours, not days. But, and this is a big but, it can only find the specific genes it's been programmed to look for. The classic method, while slower, actually checks if a shield is functional, even if it's a brand new type we've never seen before. So, at the end of the day, why does all this detective work matter? First, and most importantly, it helps doctors choose the right antibiotic, which can be a life or death decision for a patient. Second, it's absolutely crucial for infection control to stop these superbugs from spreading through a hospital. And finally, it lets public health officials track how these dangerous bacteria are evolving and moving around the globe. And that really brings us to our final thought. This is an ongoing arms race. The bacteria are constantly developing new shields, new ways to evade our drugs. So the crucial question we're left with is this. As the culprits get smarter, how will our forensic science have to evolve to stay one step ahead?